Failed World, pages 76 through 100. The sight of the seaside town was enough to make the father and son cry with overwhelming feelings of happiness. They were so thankful to have made it that far. To avoid being harassed by any merchants, now advised they act like tradesmen of fish and seaweed. It was a good thing now thought to do this. If they didn't fit in like the rest of the people doing the same thing trading something, then Nal and Earth would have definitely found themselves in a lot of trouble with interrogators asking what their business was there. Since Nal and Earth had the things everybody else had, they appeared to be simple merchants that no one would think twice about. They just needed to make sure their dried fish and seaweed was on display in the front of their boat where everyone could see, like the rest of the sea merchants. Earth was thankful for his father for having thought of this critical decision before it was too late. If they waited a minute longer, they would have been spotted making this move out of desperation and would have appeared suspicious to the surrounding boathouse merchants. Nal was thankful that he and his son were able to sleep through the night, even with high fevers. Staying hydrated and cool in the coastal air spared them from a worse, more long-lasting illness. Anchor was set next to the famous seaside beach town. Their boat was attached to the dock. These things made Nal feel like a happy kid again, when he dreamed of doing such a thing. Nal told his son that as well, explaining how his childhood dream was exactly what they were doing. Earth told Nal it was the same feeling to be united with his father at this place. Then came the long part of their quest. Once off the boat, the plan was to go into the places where most people gathered and ask everyone who they were in the most non-threatening, unsuspiciously common ways they could think of as far as an approach. This was easy for the most part, as long as they remained calm and didn't ask too many questions, letting the people do the talking so that they felt like they were in control of the way the conversation flowed. If someone came across as unpleasant, Nal told Earth to move on to someone else further away from that questionable person. Through crowds of people they did this, and went into many different gathering places and establishments. The first day there, from morning into night, they had no luck with no leads. The following day, word spread through the town. People asked each other about a woman with a child that came from the great city, and men asking if anyone knew anything. Quite a few people knew who they were looking for, and found 4 different women with young sons and daughters that fit the description. These women had children from different fathers, besides 2 of them. One woman only had 1 daughter, and the other had only 1 son. These were the ones who slept with Nal, and made sure not to have any other children. By having only 1 child, these women knew it would be more believable that they slept with the son of the flesh goddess. Nal was looked at by the people of the failed world as a famous prince who'd been banished. The legitimization of these children is what caused the controversy of his banishing. So, if any cause for rumor was made towards the legitimacy of these mothers' accusations, it would put a death mark on those women as well. None dared make a false accusation, knowing they'd be found out and killed. That morning, the people of the seaside town came to Earth and Nal's boat by the dock. That whole night, the people talked about how these 2 men went all over town looking for women and children who came from the great city. Some laughed and said that there were too many to count, but when it was mentioned that these were women who stayed in the famous winery brothel, people caught on as to the significance of their questioning. Most people didn't know about Now on a detailed level, but the word did get out about him all those years ago when he first was banished. His story became some sort of legend, assuming he had died long ago in the wilderness. This never even occurred to Now until he heard his own name brought up in such a way. People talked about him right in front of his face. He heard that people around town stopped caring about the old needle in the haystack years ago, and that it was a waste of time since he was most likely dead. This was great news for Now, and he saw how happy it made Earth to hear such rumors. At the same time, Now had to understand that since they were bringing up these sensitive subjects with very particular details, it made people remember Now and what happened to him. No one connected Now to the questioning about the woman that day, but people would think about it as things were brought up. The boat was only as big as a decent sized living room that Earth and Now converted into a sea merchant home. They built a roof and walls that first day around noontime, when they needed rest and a meal after going out early that morning to talk to the townspeople. Now was also able to fix his sandals, making them good as new. He hadn't been able to do that since he was his son's age. To fit in, Earth and Now also made themselves turban-style hats to protect themselves from the unforgiving sun. The people dressed differently than what Now was used to. In the South Seaside town they were in, which was the largest one of all of them, they developed a culture fitting for the environment. In the great city, it was hotter in the hot months and cooler in the cold months. The beach consistently stayed on the warm side, but neither hot or cold. When the people came to the boat, they scared Earth out of his sleep. Earth thought the outsidelanders came to kill him and his father. When Earth looked outside and saw the townspeople on the dock, he was relieved, seeing they were only excited about something. Earth was able to put his sword down and relax. Now was only awakened by Earth, otherwise Now would have slept for another hour in a dead sleep. Earth shook his father awake by the shoulders and said, "There are people here. They're excited about something, I don't know what." Now looked at Earth with eyes still trying to focus and said, "Oh, maybe they have some useful information about our inquiries." "I think so," Earth enthusiastically said as he remained hopeful and positive. "Let's see what they want. I can hear their chatter as if they're anxious," Now said as he put on his sandals. Earth was the first to go out there and say something, then his father came out to join him. When Earth asked, "How can I help you?" the people all began to speak at once. When Now came out, they went silent. Now had a kind of presence that struck people as someone who deserved respect. He had a tough face that was formed by the brutal, harshest conditions of the wilderness. People knew there was only one way to get that hard look on someone's face as they got older. It meant you lived a hard life out there. Now was just thankful that nobody suspected him of being who he was. If anybody thought about it enough, they'd at the very least have the thought cross their mind about the possibility of Now being alive, looking for his children, and the women who came forward to Aknal, who caused his banishment. Now just knew it was only a matter of time before someone would put two and two together, guessing rightly the truth. All Now could do, and all he wanted to do, was enjoy every moment he was given grace. "Please, at one time, my son is overwhelmed," Now addressed the people. "First, we need to know just who you are. No one knows you or your son personally. This is most common here in our town not to know one another personally, as we all come from far away across the land, but before we give any information, we need to know that you do not work for the flesh goddess, and do not wish to turn over anyone to be sacrificed. You see, it has happened before, many years ago, and it caused years of turmoil in this place. We came here to escape such chaos and do not like the great city. An elderly woman spoke for the group, who was trusted to do so. This particular woman was someone who escaped to the seaside town from the great city in the beginning. She originally was from a place further than the outside lands of the wilderness. Her city was trying to rival that of the great one, but Paradisian armies from the great city destroyed it and took the people as captives to fill the brothels and places where they needed slave laborers. Like anybody else in the failed world, this woman did many bad things, but was respected as someone they could trust in the seaside town because she was honest with her story and did no one wrong. The bad things she did were when she was young to escape. She let her family die to get where she was. This woman had regret written all over her face, and this is why she hated her younger self. Now answered the old woman and said, I was a fisherman all my life. I met many women at that brothel I told you about, and know that I fathered more children than my son here, like every other man is guilty of in that cursed city. A fisherman? You traded with the great city? The old woman asked now. Yes. I would go there when my week was done to drink, rest, and to find a woman to lie down with. Now lied on the spot, and was believed without anyone doubting him. There are many men like you here, but I know of none that ever had the heart to find their estranged children. What compels you to do so? The old woman asked. My son wants to meet his siblings. This makes me want to meet them as well. My son has been with me ever since his mother died, when he was very young, Now said. The people believe Now and his stories that were only told to save his life. This effort didn't get any compassion or empathy from any of the townspeople. They all had their own concerns. They did feel they could trust Now, though, and this is all that mattered to everyone. So after this, the people brought forth 4 women and their children, 2 of which were indeed women who slept with Now and raised his daughter and son. This is Satu. She came here from the great city with her son so she could start a family with another man outside the confines of the flesh goddess city. She's been married 4 times. This never could have been possible in the Paradisian city. You know she would have been killed by those fanatics of Aknal, the elderly woman explained as she began to introduce the 4 women brought forth to Now. I do not know this woman. What about these 2 that cover their faces? Now asked the old woman, who had her focus on another woman she was wanting to introduce first. Never mind them. They're prostitutes who still make their living selling their bodies. I can't imagine it would be them. Take a look at this woman, who is confirmed to have come from the great city. Her name is Mercua. Her husband fought and died to save the child that was not his. Aknal was going to sacrifice the child. She came here to meet a new husband, and did. Is this not one of the women you were with? This woman the elder talked about stood there with her grown children conceived by different fathers. No, I do not know this woman. I knew as soon as I saw her that this is not a woman I knew. Although I was drunk in those days, I remember every face of each woman I lay down with, although I cannot tell you their names. Now explained to the old woman. Forgive my persistence. I was hoping it would be one of these 2 women, for your sake. The old woman did not care who she offended as she spoke her mind. Thank you for bringing these women and their children. I would like to see these 2 if they could uncover their faces, Now hoped. Now already knew it must be them. Their children had that golden hair that no one else had. This was the detail that would get the people talking, which would make them remember that detail about Now, having the golden hair that only the first humans had. In that moment, though, the women hiding their faces kept the secret of Now by their wit. The other two women took off their veils that covered their faces, and one said, "You know us." Now turned pale as his heart had palpitations. He thought that for sure they'd say his name. In his mind, he imagined it as soon as he saw their faces. He could never forget them, as these were the two women he slept with in one night. Now impregnated them both, and disregarded them, never imagining he could have done so, given what they told him, just like all the other women he had ever laid down with at that famous winery. Earth spoke up after waiting for his father to say something, but heard no reply. "Then these are my siblings. My name is Earth. Nice to meet you." "Earth, I am Ven." Earth's sister introduced herself first. Then Earth's brother introduced himself. "I am Mar." Earth went to shake their hands, but was given hugs by both of them at once. Now was thrilled to have found two more of his children out of the 7 who were brought forth to his mother. Now was so thankful to see that these children of his were kind like Earth. Now couldn't believe how fortunate he was for this moment, even if it were for only a moment. The two mothers of Now's children had something to tell him that needed to be in private. What they knew about the other children was about to change everything in Now and Earth's lives, as well as change the entire failed world, putting it into chaos. The old woman then said, "Well then, my work here is done. I'll be leaving now." The rest of the people followed her back to their places within the town. Already some of the people were talking about the similarities between Earth, Ven, and Mar. Accusations were brewing and would come to light that night, but Now would already be gone by that time when people would gather to interrogate him. Now went into the home of the two familiar women, and their children went with them to talk of what they knew. "There is a great danger. You mustn't be here. If we were like the others, you would be already killed. When we saw what transpired after coming forth to your mother, we escaped here. Those other women with your children went to another city that was well known as being built very far away to the east. They have built what others have tried to rival the great city. 3 of the 4 women who are mothers of your children have raised tyrants, calling themselves the 3 kings. They keep their sister captive after killing her mother due to her defiance. She is the one who told us of these things. They found her here after she told us. This is why we know better than to mention your name." The mothers spoke over each other, explaining these grave things. "Then I must go save my daughter from her brothers," Now gave the only answer. Earth was very happy to hear his father say those words as his only reply. He too wished to go save his sister. Earth then began to think, wondering what Ven and Mar thought of all of this. He hoped they would say something, but their mothers continued to talk. "Your other sons are very corrupt. They took advantage of other people from many smaller towns to build up their city. They've mastered the usage of the slave. Unlike Aknal's followers who are manipulated by magic plants and wine, the slaves of the 3 kings are pushed to grow strong through intense training that is forced upon them by violence. The army of the 3 kings is ruthless," the mothers said. "If their city and their army is even more terrible than the great city, even if their numbers are added to those who already hunt me, then so be it. I will go against the world to save one, my daughter," Now declared. Finally, Earth got his wish while hearing what his siblings had to say, first from his sister, Ven, when she spoke to Now. "I am glad that someone like you is my father. If it were me in the place of my sister, I'd wish for you to come to my help." Mar added one powerful word, saying after his sister, "Same." Earth, filled with energy, told his siblings, "My heart is glad to know this." Nal was ready to leave the seaside town right then and there. He was prepared to leave their boat at the east end of the river, where there was a place to find resources needed to travel to the city of the Three Kings. Earth brought up the anchor as soon as everyone crammed into the little boat, and they went away before nightfall came along with the crowd of interrogators. It would take some time for word to reach Ochnau in the great city. There were quite a few people in the seaside town who heard this rumor. Everyone knew they'd be rewarded for their information if they went to Ochnau and proved what the mob witnesses saw. It was determined amongst the seaside people that they had enough reason to believe this indeed was Nal who came into their town to find his children. The people felt stupid to have never thought about this golden hair correlation before, which they saw on the heads of Vin and Mar all those years watching growing up. Somehow, they were given this grace to live there in peace until that night when they met their brother Earth and had to escape. Once moving along the river, Vin told Earth, "I'm glad you are the way you are. I always dreamed of going to save my sister, but didn't know how." Mar said the simply powerful words, "Me too." Nal was so happy to hear this from his children. He was nearly bursting with emotions. Nal had a drive in him that was so powerful he felt stronger than all the days of his youth before the day he escaped his mother. Nal also thought of the incredible irony of everything. He thought it was uncanny that his children were the age he was when he was banished. Now they too were forced to leave the place they lived their whole lives. The mothers of Vin and Mar never bothered to give their names, since Nal admitted to everyone that he didn't remember. Nal wished he knew, but accepted the fact that he was a drunkard that forgot names. He was ashamed of sleeping with them both in one night so carelessly. Nal was so gullible in his younger years, believing whatever women told him as long as he got what he wanted from them at first. He never got what he wanted in the end, which always was over before it started, and so Nal never truly had a relationship with a woman, aside from his drunken nights that only lasted one night. Instead of talking about the past, Nal focused on what needed to be done in order to travel east. Reaching the east end of the river in the night was good because it was dark and secluded. No one dared to go there at nighttime unless they wanted trouble, which would be too much to handle for any riverboat. Earth pulled anchor just in time to leave while they could, finding this uninhabited place with mostly all the resources they needed. The main thing needed for travel was a particular animal not found on Earth. Like a camel, the Lissel was a creature that stored water, but much more due to its size. As big as the biggest elephant on Earth, the Lissel could pull sufficiently sized carriages for long travels that horses could not. No other animal was capable of doing this. The best quality of these animals above anything else was their temperament. The Lissel was not easily bothered by any circumstance, so they were trustworthy. Mar was the one who knew how to wrangle a Lissel. If it weren't for him, this task would have never been accomplished. Mar regularly went out along the river to gather these useful animals, plus other desired beasts he could trade in the city for things he needed to live. Mar's mother and Vin's mother had something in common that kept their children close to them. They repented for what they did for taking them to Ochnau. They felt sorry for what they did. Inadvertently, 2 other women were killed who tried to impersonate Mar and Vin's mothers the moment they fled the city after realizing the flesh goddess was unstable. Ochnau's unpredictability made the real mothers of Vin and Mar fearful, thinking of the potential sacrifices that might take place. Everyone knew that if the flesh goddess could put a mark of death on her only son, then no one was safe, not even her grandchildren. This, of course, was before Aknal adopted her great-granddaughter, when Etha came to the flesh goddess bearing the child. Unknown to the flesh goddess, Aknal didn't kill the women she thought she killed. As far as she knew, all 7 of the mothers of her grandchildren were slaughtered that night for an evening sacrifice, after coming forth to the flesh goddess for what was perceived to be an attempt to gain from being whores. The exploitative behavior could not be trusted, so Aknal made the secret command to her highest-ranking guards, sending the women to a preparation chamber. The women were supposed to be told to get ready for an evening celebration, as if they were going to be the honored guests. Instead, the guards told the women they were going to be sacrificed, and if they wanted to live, they had to leave the great city immediately. Aknal had no idea these guards were sleeping with these women regularly and had a fondness for them. This was the secret of the 7 women who were the mothers of Nal's children, and the mystery that few knew because of the high deceit involved. The real ones escaped. Aknal let the women who pretended to be the 7 mothers think they were going to be revered and celebrated. The flesh goddess wasn't stupid. When the impostors replaced the true 7 mothers of her grandchildren, Aknal knew. She thought it was suspicious these women came back with their faces covered. Subtly, Aknal asked one to pull her veil down so that she could hear her at the table when the evening festivities began. At Aknal's table, this impostor had the audacity to think she could fool the flesh goddess. Aknal kept her composure and still pretended to be fooled, just like how the women pretended to be someone else. Aknal took the pleasure in this double deceit, knowing she would be the one to trick the tricksters. She sent the 7 impostors back to the preparation room one last time, once the feast was over, and had them slaughtered. While the feast was happening, the preparation room was converted to an execution chamber. Their blood was drained into a wheeled cauldron and brought out to the people, so they all could drink the blood of the women. Aknal never let her city know that the real women got away. Her pride kept her from allowing the truth to get out to her devoted followers. To the flesh goddess, the people gave her the power she was addicted to. If they knew their flesh goddess was tricked so deceitfully, she feared they would lose respect, which was something she never could risk. Rumors spread about the 7 women over the years. No one knew what to believe. Eventually, the various half-truths got back to the flesh goddess. By this time, she was growing more demented than ever and ordered the deaths of anyone who was accused of being a part of these rumors. Aknal's vulnerability made her more dangerous. The flesh goddess didn't want to believe the things she knew in her heart to be true. She never wanted to think of people outside of her powerful control building up cities that might one day rival her, so she worked harder on building up her grand city. With the help of her new allies from the outside lands, Aknal was going to have strong numbers, multiplying the population census of her city. Etha's family were told to bring all their allies from all over the wilderness, since they were part of the family now. Aknal had to resort to this, even though she didn't initially want to do it. But as the years passed, she knew that if she wanted to stay ruler of the largest, most powerful city, she had to have all the people she could under her rule. Etha's family was not killed then, but the people also created this rumor about the flesh goddess, saying that Aknal lost her mind and butchered them all as soon as she got her grandchild in her hands. Most of the people actually believed this, But the truth is much more grim. Aknau killed them after a few years because she was tired of the rumors. Out of spite, the flesh goddess killed them. That night after they were beheaded, Aknau went out and declared from her chamber hall that now the people could say that they died, and it was true. It was important for her to emphasize now. She threw the heads of Etha's family down to the people with all her might and packed them with poisonous stingers from insects similar to deadly scorpions, so that when the heads were caught, they pricked the hands of the greedy. Those people who first caught the heads dropped them on the ground to be picked up by other greedy hands who did the same. All in all, about 100 people died from the heads of Etha's family. Paradisians were dumbfounded, believing these people were killed a long time ago. It turned out to be confusion with other sacrifices and rumors of the crowds below. Aknau was growing so mad her mind was playing tricks on her. She was not sure of herself, or what reality she wanted to accept. Some days she would swear to the people close to her that she did kill Etha's family as soon as she got her granddaughter in her hands. Sometimes she would kill people for denying this. People quickly learned to stay quiet, realizing any day could be a bad day for their flesh goddess, and that she could take the slightest thing as words defying her authority. As more people came to the city, Aknau had more people she could get away with killing, which defied logic itself. This was the insanity that ruled the manipulated Paradisian people under Aknau. The truth of Etha and her family's life may never fully be known or understood during their time in the great city. Some people believe they lived for years, while others insist they were killed soon after Aknau received her granddaughter for adoption. Now and Earth would not learn of any of these things while they went east when they went to try and save the last sibling from the ones who went a wicked way. The three kings were infamous. The more now traveled east, the more they would learn of his three sons and their reputation. They built a society based on brutal domination, which consisted of raping and pillaging the small towns as far as they could travel. This was the secret that explained why the city of the three kings grew to the size it was at that time. When the rumors were proven to be true, and now knew his sons were powerful enough to rival his mother in the great city, now feared the nightmares he knew were about to come to life. It would take Now and his family a year to reach the edge of the city they were looking for. Many hardships would come their way. With each difficulty blocking their path, it strengthened their bond, which was something none of them individually thought could ever be possible before uniting as one unit. The most amazing thing for Now was the fact that these two mothers of his children were dedicated to his cause and showed no signs of betrayal. For a long time in the beginning of their travels together, Now imagined they'd conspire to do something against him, but it never happened during that whole year. Now knew that if they were going to do something against him, it would happen during a year's time. So when they'd finally got to the edge of the city of the three kings, and the destination was in sight, Now was just beginning to feel comfortable enough to let his guard down with the mothers of Vin and Mar. Once Now past the other side of the river going eastward, a peace came over him that he never experienced before. Even though Now knew he had more problems than ever, as far as people looking for him who wanted him dead, he had more fulfillment in life and more purpose. Being united with three of his children brought Now clarity and importance. Now worked with his children. They could not stay long in one spot for that first month as they began their travels. For only 2 hours a day, while stopping twice to eat, they built with the resources they gathered. It took a month, that whole first month, to build their carriages. Before that, it was rough, sleeping in tents for only 4 hours at a time. Once the carriages were finally completed, they were able to sleep in them while they went along their way east. This made Nal and his family appreciate what they had all the more. There were 4 carriages built and pulled by the 4 beasts they acquired. One carriage held no people but only supplies. One housed Nal and Earth. One housed Vin and her mother, and one housed Mar with his mother. They had a wall between them that folded down during the day so they could share their room if they wished when not sleeping. They slept in shifts of 3, 8 hours at a time. Nal and Earth slept from 4 to midnight. Vin and her mother slept from midnight to 8 in the morning. Mar and his mother slept from 8 in the morning till when it was time to wake Nal and Earth. This was not easy, but much better than what they were doing before the carriages were built. In the city of the Flesh Goddess, the people of the outside lands came from all over, even across the furthest parts of the deep wilderness. When the numbers of the great city multiplied by these newcomers, Ocnal received another pleasing proposition. The outside land people made their homes around the edges of the city, expanding the size of Ocnal's domain. They suggested an offer to bring more power to their Flesh Goddess. The outside land people told Ocnal that if they could find a way to gather all the burning creatures and bring them to the great city, they'd be able to add their strong beast neighbors to the already great Paradisian numbers. This would make the Flesh Goddess's Paradisians unbeatable for any outside kingdom. When word got to Ocnal about this eastern kingdom built by her 3 grandsons, she had no choice but to listen to these outside land people, who she always thought of as absolute savage barbarians. Ocnal let killers in her city. Killing was their idea of fun. They betrayed one another daily. It was pleasurable for the outside landers to create a little excitement with their deceitful games. These people would break into homes and take advantage of anyone caught off guard, often getting killed in the process. Chaos was all they knew out there in the wilderness. With the beasts as their neighbors, they didn't know how else to live. The people who came into the great city from the outside lands missed the chaos that came from their beast neighbors, so the maniacs lured them in. With the help of the brilliant minds throughout the city, better traps were made and brought to the sandy areas where the burning creatures were known to nest. To go around the thickest parts of the wilderness took a long time, since the plant friends of Earth and Nal rejected anyone else who tried to get close to the old farm. The Paradisians, as Ocnal loved to call the people of her city, were able to go around the peculiar plants in 3 days' time to where they needed to go, trapping the burning creatures. The Paradisians who helped the outside landers gather the burning creatures did not know that their new fellow citizens had the same addiction to the flesh they were gathering to tempt the beasts. After the job was done, and all the traps were full of these peculiar creatures that engulfed themselves in flames, the natural-born Paradisians were shocked to see the savage outside land people burning their fingers to taste the flesh they considered delicacy. One of the first outside landers to take a piece of flesh from their catch and give it to an original Paradisian was offended that they would not taste the meat. It was not because the Paradisian thought it looked unappetizing, but knew he would become dangerously addicted like the beasts and the savages. With the growth of New Paradise came an expansion of crime. The different lifestyles between people clashed before adding the beasts to the mix. When the 3rd edition came to the great city, this change brought a dangerous power to Ocnal, who was pleased to have such chaos under her command. Ultimately, she gave the beasts and people a commonality that none wanted to lose. The things added to their lives under rule of the flesh goddess made it impossible for any of her citizens to see life without. Ocnal didn't care that her city was more dangerous for her people. This didn't directly affect her, other than setting her authority deeper in stone. With more chaotic crimes happening in New Paradise, the flesh goddess was able to enforce more violence against the Paradisians. Displaying her control was what Ocnal lived for, especially as she got older. Having a granddaughter to teach her ways created a stronger will to live within the flesh goddess. Her rule was going into uncharted territories for sadism. In fear of her own mortality, Ocnal sought to prolong her life. She knew of strange magic beyond the plants only used for mind-altering, but the people who used such chemicals were out of the control of New Paradise. To the far west, in the mountainous areas of the land, lived a type of people who were known to stay youthful, although they were as old as Ocnal. The Outlanders told the Paradisians about these Westerners in the high mountains. The information reached Ocnal soon after. The flesh goddess was determined to learn the secrets of these people so she could heal from her lifetime of mistreatment that turned her body rotten with disease. Ocnal was promised by the Outlanders that the Westerners of the high mountains had the secret magic that could restore her body to a youth like 20 years younger. This temptation caused an obsession inside the mind of the flesh goddess, which would send her away from her prized city on a quest to achieve godlike power through reversing the age process. During the years-long quest for Western magic, Ocnal sent her people out in every unclaimed direction to gather more people as the great city grew. The flesh goddess promised great rewards to those leading the conquests, maintaining her stronghold of power. She commanded the people not to do harm to those sites, but to tempt them. This is where Ocnal's policies of conquest differed compared to the three kings of the East. That kingdom where Nal was starting to reside with his family as sojourners was a place built on fear and domination through the worst kinds of inhumanities. Nal came to the conclusion that he and his family were forced to reside longer than planned along the edges of the eastern city. The city of the Three Kings was a city of cruelty. Screams could be heard every day and night, never ceasing as each day passed. Executions of those deemed criminals by the Three Kings was their version of a sacrificial ceremony. They didn't call it that, but the public behavior of the citizens was just the same. There was no difference between the fanaticism of Paradisians and citizens of the notorious eastern city. Nal lived with Earthvin and Mar along the borderline of the kingdom. His 3 sons ruled with a rod of iron. They made the people call them the Triffics, which referred to their singular personality, venerating them as a supreme godlike force. It is said that beasts are too afraid to bite them for fear of falling dead from the hate in their blood. When the Three Kings built their empire on a pile of skulls after a long, hard-fought battle ending in bitterness for those who grouped together from the surrounding cities, those who fought alongside them witnessed an incredible sight. One of the survivors in battle was a snake charmer who had a collection of venom that was used to coat weapons used against the first army of the Three Kings. The Triffics came to the snake charmer, taking great pleasure in his suffering as he lay amongst the dead of his village. As the Triffics came close to the man they thought was holding his wounded stomach, they found out he was really holding back a vicious cobra. The snake charmer hid the cobra under the belly of his shirt as he writhed with his back against the ground. The Triffics came up to the man and knelt down smiling until the snake charmer's expression changed to a deceitful smile causing the Triffics to also change their expression from a smile to the look of unpleasant surprise. The snake charmer let go of his tight grip around the cobra's neck after showing its face to the Triffics. As soon as the cobra set its sights on them, it lashed at the brother who stood closest to the snake charmer. As the cobra bit the arm of the first brother, the other two tried to get the snake off while it latched down, wrapping a tight coil up to the bicep. The cobra lifted its head to bite the other two brothers, then fell dead, as if it could not handle the blood of the Triffics. The snake just fell limp as it recoiled and slid off the brother's arm. The snake charmer couldn't believe what he witnessed, as he had never seen something like this in all his life. He knew that somehow the blood of the brothers was toxic to the cobra, killing it in just a few seconds after the repeated bites it gave. The venom did nothing. This was a divine sign to the people, making it clear that the three brothers indeed were the Triffics and worthy of worship as their ruling god kings. The snake charmer was in so much shock, he put no thought or consideration to the fact that the Triffics was going to kill him. His only concern was examining his snake to see if it was playing dead. He couldn't believe it when the cobra was confirmed to be killed. The snake charmer fell weak at the Triffics' feet, begging to live so that he could worship such gods in the flesh, whose blood is so strong it kills that of a cobra. "Please, let me live so that I might worship you," the snake charmer continued repeating until he was given his wish. "You may live to worship us, but you shall have your arms cut off at the shoulders, so that you can never deceive us again. You will be kept on a leash to eat scraps with the dogs. If a day goes by that you wish to stop worshiping us, then you will be ground up in chunks to feed those dogs," the Triffics warned. "I will confess your greatness to all your people until my dying breath," the snake charmer swore, as he did profess staying true to his word in lasting amazement. By this incredible thing, the story grew into such a legend that it sprouted more unbelievable rumors of divine signs that never really happened. The three kings let the people believe the stories as long as it built up their greatness among the people, putting fear into all who were under their protection as Triffic citizens, contributing to their reputation of greatness. The cruelty administered by the Triffics was what the city was known for, creating a mystique for the people to align with their worship. Understanding the consequences of going against the rule of the three kings made people obedient through fear of their Triffics' flesh gods. The tyrant brothers became monstrous like their mother Ochnal, the original flesh goddess. Cruelty was the common denominator. Nal kept his family moving along the edge of the city so that they would never have to socialize with people who could associate them as being locals. They appeared to be like others who were just passing through. Nal was able to do this for a few years, learning all he could about the eastern city until he gained enough knowledge to get inside, going beyond the walls that guarded the housing blocks along circular borders. The people who lived in that housing closest to the walls on the inside were known as Skinners. Nal learned from others who came in and out of the city that this is how sojourners were able to become citizens inside the walls. The easiest way to achieve Triffic citizenship was to take the lives of a Skinner's household and replace their role within the city. One day, Earth was with his brother and sister looking for food when they heard the screams of someone being skinned. New people going into the city caught Earth close to the walls. Their conversation led to information being given about the new people's plans. Nal ran to the screaming of the skinned and saw his 3 grown children talking to these other sojourners, thinking there was about to be a deadly confrontation. Earth stopped Nal from becoming violent towards the strangers.